What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome back. This is the Fantasy Alarm 2-minute drill. I'm Dan Malin. Back with us this week is James Grande, fresh off his wedding. Congrats to you, Grande.
Thank you. Since the wedding, gone through a hurricane, lost power twice. It's been hasn't been a lot of celebrating since, but
the relationship has really been tested.
It sure has. It sure has. But thanks, Dan. Happy to be back, and a little sickness to go along with it as well. Non-COVID related illness. I'm able to play through it though. I took all the fluids before the game.
Team player. All right, let's break down week 4. Very weird. Another weird week to, I guess, carry on the theme of just a very bizarre and odd season. Week 4, not bad for me in season long. Won most of my matchups. DFS was a bit of another story. My GPP lineups were actually really strong. If I had only played just tournaments, I probably would have tripled my money easily. But I also invested a lot in cash games, and the only right call I made on my cash lineup was playing Geno Smith. Everything else kind of crap. Not the best cash game week for me in DFS, but how was week 4? How to treat you?
Oh, it was terrible. I did cash in the late slate. Had a pretty good line in the late slate. All thanks to Kyler Murray's ability to just somehow switch, flip a switch at halftime, seemingly every game, where he looks like
Baker Tebow time. Remember that?
It is some Tebow time action. He looks like Baker Mayfield in the first half, and then the Tim Tebow magic kicks in. And I think yesterday in late slate it was like him, Dubs, and McCaffrey all back-to-back touchdowns. I was like, oh, that's ideal for my late line. But my main slate lineup was trash. Didn't play cash. I don't waste my money there like you do. But it was unfortunate because I played Herbert as my quarterback, and he dominated. And then Austin Eckler scored all the touchdowns. So that was unfortunate. But, we move on. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to week 5.
Let's talk about a little fantasy etiquette. One of the big stories coming out of Sunday morning of week 4 was Alvin Kamara was a surprise inactive. The news dropped at 8 a.m. Eastern time for the 9:30 a.m. Eastern time London game. So surprise inactive at 8 a.m. If you were awake, if you were aware of the news, you had 90 minutes to make a swap. A lot of people did. However, there were still almost 80 to 90%. I know for a fact that it was 85% of lineups on CBS Sports Leagues kept Kamara in. So people were either sleeping through the news, they just weren't getting it. I don't know what the hell happened. I felt bad because my insomnia kicked in Saturday night into Sunday, and I was in the NFL season-long Discord. And one of our subs named Coltastic, he lives in Hawaii, and so the game was starting probably around 3:30 a.m. for him. And I was in there talking with him, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's going to play. He was a limited participant in practice. He's trending towards playing. I'm plugging him in all my labs. He was the cover boy for my Showdown article for the game. And then at 8 a.m., Howard comes into the chat and says Alvin Kamara is out. And immediately my thought just went to, I was up at 4 a.m. telling him that he was probably going to play. And Goltazik, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. I was trying to tag you in the Discord to let you know. Maybe by some divine intervention, it would wake you up. But enough with that. What should happen in this instance? Are you of the mindset that, look, I'm looking at my notes and I realize I just spelled Kamara wrong. I spelled it. Anyway, what happens in this situation? Should commissioners allow owners to make a swap after lock, or is this it? If you're not awake when inactives are coming out, that's your problem. I'm of the mindset that you need to be a bit of a hard ass. If you can't get up at even 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. 6 a.m. isn't even asking that much if you're a grown adult. That's just my opinion. But if you can't get up, just to briefly check inactives really quick, you got to take the 0 here.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's no doubt. You mentioned, we're East Coasters, 9 o'clock. Guys, really? We can't be awake at 9 o'clock? Is that how lazy we've become? I get it. We also understand, because the London games have been going on for quite some time, that London games are going to keep going on for some time.
One next week,
right? There's another one with the best team in the NFC, and then the Packers in that one. I think that is your fault. To 80 to 90% of the people that left it in in your lineup, that's your fault. And I think, like you said, the hard assery kicks in, and if you left him in your lineup, that's a 0 for you. Now, the stipulation is if you're in Hawaii at 3:30, maybe if the rest of your league is in like a reasonable time zone, that's something. But even then, I think you just have to give him the 0. I think it's just across the board. If you're giving the 0 to one guy, you're giving the 0 to everybody.
It sucks. Definitely felt bad for the guy as soon as the news broke. I was in a league where one of my opponents actually still played Michael Thomas, and I don't know how the hell you let that happen because that news broke on like Friday that he was not going to play. But we're moving on. We had a lot. We were recording this Monday night during the Monday Night Football game between the Rams and the 49ers. We had quite a bit of news break on Monday. We'll start with Javonte Williams. Tore his ACL. He is done for the year. How do we rank Melvin Gordon the rest of the season? He's fumbled 5 times in just 44 carries this year. Can he be trusted as an RB2 at worst flex play? And if you're a Gordon owner, what could you possibly look to get in a trade for a running back needy manager? You know, this is a position that's more injury prone than any other in fantasy football. So what can you possibly be fetching for Melvin Gordon, or do you maybe just sit on him for a bit, see if he can run up his value?
So I probably have him rated a little higher than you. Yes, the fumbles have definitely been an issue, but if you look throughout his career, 6 is the most he's ever had in a season, and that was his rookie campaign. So this seems more of an anomaly than it is like the standard with Melvin Gordon. I know he's fumbled 4 times in each of the last 2 years, but that's 16 game sample. Like that's not a 4 game sample. And when you think about Melvin Gordon, first off, he can contribute in the passing game. We know that. He's had multiple 50 reception seasons on his ledger. And if you date outside of his rookie season, he's had 6 straight years of 8 or more rushing touchdowns. People say, oh, touchdowns aren't viable. We talked about this all last year with James Conner. Oh, James Conner is going to fall off because he can't keep scoring touchdowns. Well, James Conner kept scoring touchdowns. And that's what Melvin Gordon's done his whole career. He's had 5 of his last 6 seasons with 10 or more total touchdowns. And the one that he didn't was 9. So if I'm ranking Melvin Gordon, is a top 15 option weekly. Even with the fumble issues, I think it's only 4. So I do like Melvin Gordon. I think he's a top 15 option.
I definitely think that there's some intrigue with him, especially because he's in a contract year. Granted, he's 29 and he turns 30 in April, and 30-year-old running backs tend to wear off, and they aren't going to grab as much of I guess you can't really be cashing in anymore after this. But if he can stay durable and contribute, this is a good opportunity for him. Moving on to another injury. Cordarrelle Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons has been placed on IR. He's going to miss 4 games. Is there any interest in the Atlanta Falcons backfield, even though it's going to mostly be a committee? It's not one that generates a lot of buzz, especially with Patterson sidelined. Very hard for me to get excited about anyone aside from Tyler Algier. And even then, he's probably going to ride my bench most weeks.
Yeah, I mean, there's interest if you're desperate, right? I mean, there's a lot of guys that may have lost Jonathan Taylor for a week, that lost CPAT. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's definite interest. But like you said, lost Javonte Williams. I mean, there's a lot of injuries at the running back position. So, yes, interest if I'm desperate. Algier is definitely the top target. He played 24 snaps after Patterson left. Huntley played 12. Interesting, though, they split carries, right? Algier had 10. Caleb Huntley had 10. Caleb Huntley only played 12 snaps, and 10 of them he rushed the football. One of them he ran out for a pass. One of them he was in pass protection. So, I mean, if that's going to be the usage Caleb Huntley's going to get, I definitely think there's some deep league appeal there. Like 12, 14 teams are definitely going to need one of these guys, probably. Avery Williams is the long shot, but Algier and Huntley would definitely be priority number 1 and priority number 2 of the bunch. But like, where do they rank in terms of waiver claims? Like, I don't know, middle of the pack. Like you're not spending your number 1 waiver claim on.
Yeah, especially because this week doesn't really project to be a great waiver wire, I don't think.
I mean, there's going to be popular quarterbacks in the waiver wire.
Yeah. Speaking of, that makes for a nice little pivot. But Tua Tagovailoa is officially ruled out ahead of Week 5. Guess this shouldn't be too much of a surprise after the hits that we've seen him take the last 2 weeks, especially last Thursday against the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. The independent neurotrauma specialist was that evaluated him in the game against the Bills and let him go back in. He was promptly fired by the NFL. Somebody has to be the scapegoat there, and it's going to be surprising if anyone in the Miami organization gets any punishments or anything like that. Do we think this could lead to a multi-week absence? If you don't want to answer that question, it's totally fine. I don't like speculating on head injuries either. But who is an available quarterback on the waiver wire that you'd look to add in Tua's absence?
I don't know how to approach the injury because they didn't approach it right the first time. They called it a back injury, and it didn't look like a back injury to me when he was stumbling in Week 3.
He didn't reach to his back at all.
Didn't reach to his back at all. And there was clearly some. He was seeing 6 of whoever he was looking at when he fell over. So I'm not going to speculate either, but out for Week 5, wouldn't be shocked to see him out for a couple more weeks. In terms of waiver wire, I mean, you're looking at guys under 50% owned on ESPN. I mean, Jared Goff is obviously tops the list without his top 2 options. I mean, maybe 3 if you want to count how good and viable DeAndre.
The Lions are getting into a shootout every week.
Every week. I mean, their defense is just absolutely dreadful. So I think Jared Goff is clear-cut number 1. Someone that you mentioned that was in your cash game lineups, Geno Smith. He looks pretty dang good. And he's been very fantasy viable this year in all but one game. Mm-hmm. So the game against San Francisco, he just didn't. But other 3 games, he had 2 touchdowns. Yesterday he had 3. He's given us at least 17 ESPN points in your in all formats. So I think Geno, I think Jared Goff, and maybe you're taking a flyer on Zach Wilson being fourth quarter Zach Wilson moving forward. Mm-hmm. Because he was really good in the fourth, obviously. And the Jets do have as many weapons as they've had in quite some time. I mean, they have weapons. They're all young and they're all developing, but maybe a flyer on Zach Wilson.
Good stuff. One more thing on the Tua injury. What do we think of the fantasy value for Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill with Teddy Bridgewater under center? Do we think that they can still put up the numbers of high-end wide receiver too? So I guess borderline top 12 wide receivers on a weekly basis? Or is it going to be one of those situations where it's just one of them gets fed and the other falls into, I guess, a low-end wide receiver 2 role?
Did you see the Tyreek Hill quote today where
I did see something where Teddy Bridgewater apparently looked him in the eyes and said that he will feed him or he will put up numbers with him or something like that.
Yeah, it was the beat writer asked him a question how he feels, and Tyreek Hill stared him in the eyes and was like, I will put up numbers with you throwing me the football. So
okay.
I'm not worried about Tyreek Hill all that much. I think they're both still top 24 receivers. I think, it's hard just knowing Teddy Two Gloves, but we have to, he supported 2 top 24 receivers a couple years ago, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson in Carolina. So I think that he can support them both. Do I think they'll both be weekly wide receiver 1s? No. Do I think they're probably going to have wide receiver 3 weeks? Yes. But I do think that they're both weekly starters regardless of Bridgewater.
All right, we will, I guess, wrap it up unless you've got something at the end. 4 weeks into the season, we have enough of a sample size. This is usually around the point when you kind of know what you have in fantasy football. We're almost a quarter of the way through the season. What is your approach going to be with players that are struggling with either production or injuries? Jonathan Taylor, the consensus number 1 overall pick this year, he's been very disappointing aside from week 1, and he's questionable for Thursday. Christian McCaffrey, very well documented the struggles of the Panthers offense. Kyle Pitts, is there anyone else that I'm missing? I probably am. Are we still starting our studs, or are we getting a little weary and benching some of these guys?
I mean, So I saw this tweet earlier from today. It's Mike Clay of ESPN. And he sent out a tweet about Jonathan Taylor. So we'll start there. And in 2021 through 4 weeks, Dan, Jonathan Taylor was 20th amongst running backs in fantasy points. This year, he is 22nd in fantasy points. We all know how the season ended for Jonathan Taylor. He ended up as the number one back, was in the MVP talks, whatever. I guess the ankle injury could be a little concerning. We're unsure what his status is going to be heading into Thursday night. They play on a short week. They sent out their walkthrough practice report today. Jonathan Taylor was not practicing. As if there were to be a practice, he's, they projected him to be out. So, the ankle more than I'm going to be starting Jonathan Taylor every week. I also think, if people are starting to get weary on Jonathan Taylor, maybe a good time to buy. Probably never going to have a lower stock than off an ankle injury and being the RB20. Christian McCaffrey, I mean, whereas, quote unquote bad, I guess, as he's been, I mean, he caught a whole bunch of passes, scored a touchdown yesterday. It's obviously concerning that Baker Mayfield is the quarterback there, and they're not going to make a change, seemingly. They're going to stick with Mayfield. We'll see when Sam Darnold returns if that's going to continue to be the case, but seems that way as of now. I'm not worried about McCaffrey at all. I'm 100% worried about Pitts. I mean, the usage is terrible. They just don't care. They're using him to block. They're using him he's not running routes. He ran 12 routes in week 4.
Oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
That's terrible.
12 routes. He was in on 34 snaps. So he was run blocking for 21 snaps. He pass blocked on one of them. I'm extremely concerned with Kyle Pitts. Look, there are some offenses that I think are better than we expected. Seattle, I think, clear as day. Jared Goff in Detroit. I think some of those receivers and pass catchers slipped because we didn't think the quarterbacks would get him the ball necessarily. Marcus Mariota cannot deliver the football to anybody, and that's a problem. And it's going to continue to be a problem for Drake London. It's going to continue to be a problem for Kyle Pitts. Now their number one running back is out. Kyle Pitts I didn't love where he was being drafted to begin with. I think the only place I drafted him was in a mock draft that we did at Fantasy Alarm, just to see how things played out, because it's fun doing those kind of things in mock drafts. But
I took him in Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't obviously the usage is going to be better. We saw it in week 3 where they were we need to get Kyle Pitts the ball. They got Kyle Pitts the ball and things went well for them. But if he's going to play 12 pass snaps, I mean, there's deer in headlights concern. That is terrifying. So, yeah, I mean, I think the whole running back position is concerning. Right?
I agree with what you said, though, on Taylor and McCaffrey. I was kind of surprised when I was in the NFL season-long Discord on Sunday, and people were asking me about McCaffrey. And granted, there were injury concerns this past week, and I was telling people I don't want to tell you what to do with your team, but in every league where I own someone like McCaffrey, Taylor, or Eckler, because I have a lot of shares of Eckler, right, I'm starting him no matter what.
Right.
But it just seems like there's just this fear and this ever-growing frustration so far through the first few weeks, and it could possibly end up being the case that next week we get another just subpar for performance from Christian McCaffrey. But if these guys are active, I will never recommend ever benching any of them.
Never.
But I'm getting there with Pitts.
I mean, I think it's different. I think because Baker Mayfield can be really bad, but we know that they will move the ball by getting Christian McCaffrey the ball. And Matt Ryan has looked old and washed as well, but that offense is going to run through Jonathan Taylor when he's healthy. There's nothing to suggest, I guess maybe because Cordarrelle Patterson's injured, there's nothing else to suggest that this Atlanta coaching staff wants to get Kyle Pitts involved, as crazy as that sounds, right? What are they giving us that says, you know what, Kyle Pitts is going to break out? He ran the fewest snaps he's run all year. So I'm there with Kyle Pitts already, as much as people probably don't want to hear. I know a lot of people have tooted the Kyle Pitts horn. I'm sorry, but things are not seemingly getting better. Christian McCaffrey still had 20 fantasy points yesterday, Dan. With an injury coming into the week, look at the rest of the running back position and tell me who's consistently getting you 20 fantasy points. The number is very, very, very low.
I mean, one guy is on your team.
One guy's on my team. Yeah, I mean, he's the. I mean,
he's the RB1.
He is the RB1. So like, yeah, but like, right now it's like Saquon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire are like the two best running backs in fantasy, right? And then McCaffrey's still up there. I'm trying to pull up the.
I imagine Aaron Jones has to be up there.
Let's look. So as of coming into Monday Night Football, because that's when we're recording, Barkley, Chubb, Eckler, CEH, Christian McCaffrey, number 5. So like, even with a subpar Christian McCaffrey, he hasn't finished less than an RB2, and he's been an RB1 twice. Like, we need to take a step back and realize that the running back position is very bad this year. It got a lot worse with all the injuries this past week, including Jamal Williams, including potentially an absence from Jonathan Taylor. And we need to, Cordarrelle Patterson, who's a top 12 running back, David Montgomery, who was out last week. If you have Christian McCaffrey, be grateful you have him right now. As long as he's on the field, he's going to give you RB2 plus production, most weeks RB1.
All right, wrap it up. Do you have any believe it or nots or?
Nope. I don't this week. I'm
We'll give you a pass because you are coming off your honeymoon, and I'm not going to.
How about this?
Okay.
Currently, we have 3. We'll go with three of these running backs, and I want you to. How many of them do you believe can finish RB1s? And they're all currently RB1s. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Josh Jacobs, and Miles Sanders.
I'm going to take. I'll take 2 of them. I was initially only going to go with Miles Sanders, but that seems like a bit of a pipe dream because I'm still just so high on how he finished his rookie year. But we've seen from the newer coaching regime that I feel like
Sirianni.
Yeah, we've had our own like private text conversations where it's just like, why are they feeding Miles Sanders? Why are they not giving him the ball? It's amazing what he does when he has the ball in his hand. I do like CEH. I have him in a couple of my bigger money leagues, but at the same time, I still view him as a sell high candidate. As long as he keeps scoring, that's going to keep the value up there, and maybe someone else will bite. I do think Josh Jacobs can get there. It's pretty clear that Zamir White is not going to cut into his work at all. That was my concern coming out of the preseason. I took late flyers on Zamir White, and I've already dropped him because it's clear Josh Jacobs isn't going anywhere. I think he could finish as a RB1. I think I'll still put a little faith in Miles.
Oh no.
Well, the only the problem is like he's probably not even the best runner on his team.
Yeah.
And there are going to be weeks when it's just hurts to Jay Brown or hurts to Goddard or hurts to Smith, and the running game for Philadelphia just goes straight through him. All right,
and Hurts poaching touchdowns too.
I'll go with the logical answer and just say Josh Jacobs, but I'm tempted to go with Miles Sanders.
I think I'm with you. I think 2 of the 3. I'm not sure which. I think Josh Jacobs feels safe because of the volume. I think the Sanders thing, like, yes, he got 27 carries. That's incredible.
It's not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Probably one of like 3 times we see him get over 20 carries this year.
I also think the 2 touchdowns, probably not sustainable. Jalen Hurts is going to poach a lot of them anytime they're close to the goal line. There's no Boston Scott. We know Boston Scott, serial touchdowns stealer. So there's a lot going on in Philly. I think that's a great team. But like you said, the passing game is going to be elite. I mean, Devonta Smith had 3 catches. When Devonta Smith is like having these boom games and Jalen Hurts didn't have touchdown pass, like there's a lot of moving parts in Philly. I think Sanders finishes as an RB2, which is still fine, right? That's still a great finish.
About where he was drafted.
Right. So I still think he finishes RB2. Second question, just follow up to this. Rest of season. I think this is a pretty fair question right now. And I think a question that we could kind of move into a different direction too. Rest of season, Miles Sanders or Rashaad Penny? And then I have a follow-up to that question.
I'm going to take Sanders, because I have more faith in Sanders' offensive line. I understand that there's a clearer path to production for Penny, but offensive line is worse, and I'm actually kind of nervous about Seattle's upcoming schedule. Let me pull it up. I know they have the Chargers coming up in a little bit. So they have the Saints this week, which I'm not very excited about, on the road. Then they have the Cardinals, Chargers, Giants, Cardinals, uh, Bucks. So I mean, like, I just don't. I loved the Seahawks the last couple weeks
Right.
against softer defenses like the Lions and the Falcons. I just don't have a lot of optimism about them when I look down the pipeline and I'm seeing some of their matchups.
Okay, follow-up question.
Yep.
If you're a Rashaad Penny owner right now, is this the most optimal time to sell Rashaad Penny, or do you think it's worth keeping him? Because I don't think there's going to be another week like this. I mean, they don't face Detroit again.
Yeah.
And Ken Walker played his most snaps that he's played all year, despite Rashaad Penny having that monster game. He played 24 snaps. It's double. That's more than he's played in the last 2 games combined. So I guess I'm asking, like, do you think that this is
Yes,
a
it's a sell high.
for Rashaad
It's a
Penny?
sell high window for Rashaad Penny.
I agree, 100%. I was a Rashaad Penny truther coming into the year. I think he's a talented dude. But if you want to sell Rashaad Penny right now, stock has never been higher.
All right, Grande. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really solid recap of Week 4. Best of luck to you in Week 5, and best of luck to the FA Nation.